Nie ma jeszcze Klausa.
Jest właśnie.
Hello, Klaus.
Hello.
Hi, Klaus.
Hello.
Hi, Natalia.
Cześć,
You look
cześć, hello.
Cześć. Dwa.
Każdy będzie coś tam ruszał i 10 osób będzie miało włączone, to nie będzie nic słychać.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to you. You all.
Hello.
So, as we're waiting one more second for the rest to come. Okay. Natalia, can you say something? You have, I think,
unmute
the sound off.
Yes, I can
Okay.
say something.
Okay. And Miła, can you turn on the camera?
On sam będzie się teraz przerzucił. Ten, kto mówi, on sam będzie sobie przerzucał. Zostaw. Nie lepiej nie chwili.
I don't know.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I think we know each other, but Eva is perhaps not known to all of you. We're meeting here as the first forum at our festival. It's like a family one, so we're just us and not many more people. We planned this differently in a bigger group, of course, seeing each other and talking live, but it's not possible. But still, I think we have a nice subject to talk about, and there are many things to say about this. Dana, Bartosz, we know each other. Klaus Blaudzun, can you say just 2 words about yourself so that Eva will get to know you?
Yeah, I'm head of Institute for New Media in Rostock. Our institute is running 2 departments. One department for professional training for modern digital media professions, as well as in film and media workshop for the youngsters, promoting young media talents, providing grassroots education for the youngsters in our area here in northern Germany.
Okay, thanks. Natalia?
Hello, my name is Natalia. I'm from Elbląg. I'm working in the cinema Światowid for almost 16 years, and we are working with film education from kindergarten to secondary school, and with lots of projects connecting with children, people, seniors, etc.
There is Eva with us.
Hi, hello, I'm a psychologist. I just recently finished clinical psychology at the University of Humanities in Poznań.
And we have also one person who is the youngest, definitely. Miła, can you say something? Hello?
Yes, hello, I am a student. Yeah, basically that's it, from Szczecin.
Okay, and we also wanted someone from the younger generation not working professionally yet, just to listen to us and to give their comment on what we think is important, if it's really important for the youngsters as well. Our subject today is something that is, I think, very close to all of us. We work with film and new media and culture, but especially in these areas. Why are we doing this and why is it important? Very often, many of us, not we personally, but many people are not aware of the power of new media, what they can do in a positive and negative way. And it's very important that from time to time, we stop doing what we're doing and just think about it, how we do it and why we do it. Eva, could you, for a start, say something about how the world has changed? I mean, psychology is the very important issue here as well. So we could start from this point of view about how the kids, youngsters, and new generations grow up with this new media tools and reality that is actually impossible not to think about it when we grow up.
Well, in the 70s of the last century, children began watching TV regularly at about 4 years of age. Nowadays, children began interacting with digital media as soon as 4 months of age. So it's a huge change in the interaction with the media itself. 2 years old nowadays in the United States, they use devices on a daily basis. The majority of 1 year old had already used a mobile device. So it's a massive change within the last 40 years of using the new media and the media itself. Children nowadays use 2 or more forms of digital media simultaneously, which is using the iPad while watching TV or chatting with others on WhatsApp. So it's multitasking, that's the ability that young children are developing from the early years of age. There are dangers of that, and there are challenges for the oldest, for their parents. And there are also needs that needs to be developed by the parents of the youngsters, young kids, teenagers.
So we have a very huge change in the last years, and it's also a change that is actually happening differently in different countries, because what we have in Poland, most of us are from Poland, and it's happening differently, for example, in Germany. Could you, Klaus, say, because you have wonderful experiences of yourself, and you work not only actively as a director of New Media Institute and the festival, the film festival for youngsters, but you also work wildly with politics, and you talk to the people who actually decide about the strategies and what's going to happen and how in the new media and education field. How is it in Germany? What is your view? Is it what is now? Is it satisfactory, or do you think there are many challenges that Germany has to deal with?
There are challenges a lot, because the Germans are not on the front of digital developments. And to give an example, the equipment at the German schools belongs to the past century and is not modern. It doesn't fit to the development of the modern media society. 20 years ago, the World Wide Web became a new mass media, because more than 50% of people are logged in. But this web is not a mass media only. It isn't one new channel for communication only. It is much more. It is from a different point of view, from a different perspective. It is something like a worldwide library for knowledge of all kinds, multimedia knowledge library, and to provide the skills to use that library is one of the most important challenges for teachers today, because they have to teach all their pupils for long life learning in a changing world. And from my perspective, that is the main challenge for all teachers, for educational professions worldwide.
But since we are in Poland on a different stage, if we mean new media at schools, you said we have the equipment is not modern enough. Natalia, can you say, what do you know about the schools in Poland? Do we have any equipment at school to actually work with new media? We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
sorry for that. Yes, I think it's a big thing and big problem with this equipment, with this on this level of education in Poland. But something has changed. I hope so, because as I know, from my point of view, when we work with children from our city, Elbląg, it's with the small groups from the kindergarten and primary school, for example, it's not so bad, because they have, I don't know, TV with internet in schools, in kindergarten. But when we spoke with children from the villages, from our region, it's a big problem to communicate with them. For example, now in this hard situation with COVID, etc., it was a big problem to have some remote learning for the children from villages, because they don't use don't use phone, because they don't have a phone in their families, or computer, etc. So one TV in a classroom, it's not enough for my point of view. And when we do some, for 2 or 3 years, we try to do some lessons with iPads. We have 10 iPads in our cinema, and we try to use them to learn children how to make films, etc. It's very interesting for them, but they do not know how to use iPads, because they, of course, they know how to use phone, etc., but they don't have, I mean the people, the children from the villages, the small villages around our city. It's a big problem, because they don't have this equipment, and they don't use it at schools, of course not.
Of course not. So wildly, can we actually talk about new media competence without equipment? How can we do it? Can you say, Mr. Dr. Mr. Dr. Bartosz Wójcik, could you please tell us how is it with students? Do they have equipment? We know that the primary school kids and secondary school kids, not that much. Primary school is, I think, the most problematic. How about the students?
Luckily, it seems not to be much better, because firstly, the students who come to my classes, they are between 19 and 20 something. And I see each year new students coming, the first study year each year. What I see is just a little equipment, very rarely anything more than smartphones. that are used actually only for using the internet. If they should prepare something at home, you can see that their technical know-how, their technical skills, how to use computers or computer programs is very limited. For example, how to make a presentation, just to use it as a technical tool. Secondly, also a big question is what Klaus mentioned, the World Wide Web as a global library. So it's not only a question of how to use the tools, the programs, the equipment, but also to know what's there as pieces of information and how I can get to them. And it seems to be very difficult for the young people to learn that by themselves, how to use all the resources which are there, pretty easy, accessible, provided that one is conscious about it and really works on how to get to it. And on the other hand, the question that within the educational system, there is very little done to teach how to use it. So the young people learn it by themselves, but what they achieve is very limited. I can see a big difference because I also have some Chinese students, very similar age. And on both levels, technical skills, how they work with the equipment and what equipment they have, what they bring to classes physically. And secondly, how they work and what they can do within the educational process using those tools is a completely different world. So what I really can see is a problem on those two levels among young people. And I mean young people being 20 something, which means they really had already or have had some time learning this. They were born about the year 2000, maybe a little before it, or maybe a little later, but they grew up actually with internet, with smartphones, and still within the last 10 years, what they have achieved is actually very little.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, that is one of the most important problems, because the youngsters grew up with digital technologies. The screen time of the youngsters in Germany is now daily at a level of 6.5 hours online time.
Enormous.
Daily.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
really?
yeah. And what we teachers do is exactly what Bartosz said. We leave them alone with all these digital tools. And they do what they want. That's good, but that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
We have to change that digital world for the youngsters complete. And the first step is to provide technology to the educational institutions. For instance, in South America, Uruguay made it 7 years ago. They provided computer stuff for all teachers and for all pupils for free. Uruguay. So what about Germany? A rich country, unbelievable.
Yeah, but I think we have, maybe because it's Uruguay, maybe because it's a non-European country, we still have this educational system where the teacher is actually only to provide things to be learned and to control it. But he is actually not there to say how to learn it. He is not there to teach in reality. And the consequence is that we don't say young people how to learn, and because the tools are a piece of a learning process, we also don't say how to use it. it's only a consequence of this long established system, as it seems.
Yeah, we had a talk with Eva about young generations growing up with this equipment and the possibility to use the virtual reality on every step of their life and day and night. And there is a very important thing, I think, that we talk about youngsters, that we should educate them. But the thing is, as long as we are not educated, we as adults, as parents, as teachers, as younger generation that should actually be a teacher to those youngsters, the way we teach our kids how to go through different parts of their life, how to function in the world, we should have at least the basic knowledge in new media. And the problem, I think, is even bigger, not within the kids and youngsters, but in the group of adults, us as parents, teachers, because if we don't know and if we have no idea what they're doing, how they are doing, what kind of equipment and what kind of programs do they use, what they watch, and what comes out of it, what's in their heads, and what's happening to them when they grow up with their psychic, with their abilities to learn later, and if it's a challenge, if it's something good or something bad, how can we actually help the process to improve?
Well, it's the main challenge, I would say, for the grown-ups, for the parents, for the scholars, to use the media along the use of the media the way that children or kids or teenagers or students do. So it means we need to keep up with all the news, all the new programs, new software, new games, new TV series, all the news that are linked with the new media. We need to up to date to let the kids, teenagers, and the students actually use it in a very good manner, in the right manner. I would say it's that we need to establish a new etiquette of how to use the media. We need to play the games with the kids, the video games, as hard as it may seem. We should do that to be.
Well, playing games doesn't seem to be that hard.
Well, it depends.
Depends on the game.
It depends on the game, yes. What I would say, so basically we need to use the new media together with our kids along the use of their use of the new media to be on the same level of competence with using the new media, which is quite hard depending on the parents' age, because the generation of the parents is not the same, doesn't have the same experience of the new media. We in our 30s or 40s, we were using the new media in the different way that nowadays kids or teenagers use it.
Yes, I used to play on Atari 65XE, I think, or there was the Commodore. That were my games, and I'm afraid they're a little bit different.
What I experienced is the kids are basically linked to their phones, and they're using it in a completely different way. So basically they're using it on the picture level, not on the text level. It's quite common nowadays to use TikTok app or Likey app, which is very little, where actually not at all a text on it. The content is mostly picturesque. It's mostly images or films that kids make without any text content. So it's and also it's really hard for them. This is one of the dangers of the using of new media. They've got overstimulation problems. They've got problems with emotion control. Certain areas of the brain, of kids' brain, is not fully developed until the age of late teens, which is 18 years of age, even in their 20s. So using the new media without any text content, using only the image content of the new media, creates problem with emotion control. Kids are easily startled. They've got problems with calming down. They've got problems with getting to sleep easily in the evenings. They've got physical and psychological health problems. They've got mental problems. They've got depression problems. They've got rage problems. So this is, we need to take into consideration that why we should really accompany them with using the new media, showing them what's the best use of the new media for them.
So as for every one of us as a private person and for the people who actually have some kind of influence at the kids, youth and our world, working in cultural institutions, organizations, and whatever festivals or different projects, is it the most important to actually work not with the groups of youngsters, kids and youth or students, but to work in integrative groups with adults as well? Maybe we should focus more, not just on the workshops for kids and youth, but for the workshops actually for them together with their parents or grandparents or older brothers and sisters.
Well, I would say that it's very important, especially in Poland or in countries. Well, it's not a problem in America, I'd say. It's a problem with the countries that are not very high tech in the elderly generations, as in Poland. We need to learn how to use the new media in a very creative way, in a very progressive way, in the way that we are up to date with all the news of the new media. So all the programs that will be established for that generation of people in their 50s, in their 40s, is very needed, in my opinion, for the good use of media of our kids, to help them use the media in the right manner, to help them learn from the new media. The thing that Klaus said already, to use the new media as a huge library to distinguish between the fake news and the real news. It's really hard for kids to use the new media in a proper way. For example, I was helping the kid of my friend to make a video on the TikTok, and they are using the content of the TikTok without using their brains, I must say, because he was using the background music for the app, for the movie that he was using. And then he asked me, because the music was obviously in English, and he is only 6 years of age, so he doesn't speak English.
I know the story.
And he put the music. It was very lively music with all the exclamation marks, all that kind of very aggressive language. And he asked me, "Oh, Auntie, please translate it for me." And it was a language full of bitches and all that very improper word. So kids are not using the new media well. The kids in their 10s, they are not able to use the new media in Poland, I'd say, without knowing the language properly. They are not using the media in in the way that is really the way that they comprehend the content of the new media.
Mm-hmm. We have a young person with us, not that we are not young, because I still feel young. But Miła, can you hear us?
Yes.
Could you say something from your perspective? You heard what we said as very, not maybe very, but older and much older people. Could you tell us what is your opinion? What do you think about the situation that you actually grew up almost with the handy, I would say, of Deutsch, of us, cell phone, like a hand, like a third hand. It's your telephone, and I'm sure you had a computer from the very beginning in your life. How is it? Do you think it's a better life that we all had? Is it safe? Do you feel okay? Do you find anything that is disturbing for you, or is it just fun and wonderful opportunities?
So I think it's a totally different way of living than it is, for example, for the generation of our parents. And it's also an unstoppable process. I feel that, for example, children that are now younger than us, because we are in high school, and for example, children from primary school, they are even more in this virtual world and not here, kind of. I have younger siblings, and I feel that she is even more really born with a cell phone in her hand, because I was still not that raised with it, kind of, even though I got first computer when I was 5, so I really grew up with internet. And I think that it's everywhere, especially in our education right now, which is also a problem that I've heard that we were talking about today. And it is visible, since there is, it seems that the world isn't fast enough to be able to face the challenges that the growing internet and the generation of people living with internet is facing. And it's hard to meet these needs because everything changes so quickly, as it was also mentioned about a lot of stimuli that happens. And I feel that many people my age, we have a sense of not being able to find ourselves or some kind of peace, because of the fact that we are living so globally, like everywhere, at any time we shall be accessed by anyone that wants to talk with us, for example. And it has a lot of pressure to it, and it's obviously a lot of possibilities, which is great. And for example, I myself am being taught about the dangers and how to be safe in the internet from the very beginning of primary school, which is very nice. But if someone wasn't paying attention, for example, these dangers still do exist. And but I think that like these older generations are trying their best, even though it's really hard, because it would mean that they would have to live 2 lives, our lives and their lives, to be able to be oriented in how our lives look, since they're so different.
Did you have any control using new media as a child? Did your parents actually did they know what you were watching, what you were playing, and what you were using? Or were you there to decide by yourself what to do?
Yes, so I was controlled, especially because, for example, not to use it too much, because it was still about being able to live my real life, not only on the computer, and especially at first to teach the healthy manners and what is a good thing, good way of using, for example, internet. And I think the supervision is very important to show, because I think that young people are less aware of what can be a danger to them. So this supervision, I think, is crucial, and I had it. So I think that I was more aware, for example, than some people that didn't have this control. And they maybe knew more, but was it good for them? And I really do doubt it. That I think that the supervision is crucial, but not also obviously too much to give some kind of freedom to the children, but definitely to show some kind of care that way.
And how long would you say is a good time to spend with new media alone without your parents? And would you actually spend the time with your parents? That's what we were talking about, that we should spend time together with at least two generations, just to know in what kind of worlds we are living in and in how the way we are communicating. Do you do anything with adults, with parents or grandparents or other generation?
I think this intergeneration integration kind of, or working together, may be frustrating for both sides, but I think it's important to face it, because that's what it's all about. This kind of problems, they all come from the fact that there are differences between us and we need to address them. And for example, even if it starts with trying to use streaming services like Netflix together, or to going to for example my parents with social media and helping them how it works, what is good, to set up an Instagram account if my grandmother feels like it, to help her, but also to listen to the perspective of people who because we are now very deeply covered in all of this new media and virtual stuff. We are living in it. So sometimes this perspective from kind of outside, which would be the perspective of people that were raised more traditional way, like without internet and new media, it can be also a good perspective to be more open-minded and aware of the possibilities and dangers.
Okay. Do you find it difficult to communicate? Or it is a question to almost everyone. So we are from different maybe generations, but we have our own experiences. Is there a problem of communication because of the new media? Because of course we know it's a great opportunity. We can do more. We have TikToks, we have WhatsApp, we have Facebooks, whatever we have. Every day there is something new. But so it gives us more. But what about the side that it actually, in the end, for some people, creates the problems with communication? Is it a problem that because we are communicating virtually or by whatever things that we just tap on with our hands, how does it actually influence our communication?
I think
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Bartosz,
please. Please say.
Very difficult to answer that question, because we have to take into account what Mila said about the gap between the generations. To use media channels and media skills depends on long life learning how to navigate within a culture. And so, as Mila said, you can't change the identity of people by saying, oh, so Klaus needs a new general operating system. Let's install some Klaus 4.0 on its brain.
Please do it on mine.
And that is because of the unbelievable speed of technical developments as well as development of society. And so we have to live with this gap of generations within our societies, our communities. from my point of view, one of the most important questions is how to deal with this long-term gap within every community. Maybe we have to accept that the ways and the codes of communication between different groups within a society are much more diverse than ever. And we have to find out how to combine these different ways to communicate, how to translate the different codes. And concerning all that educational stuff, there's a German pedagogic called that problem, we have to deal with the Cinderella problem. That means, he said, in school, we always deal with good content by bad technology. And in spare time, the pupil, the youngsters are dealing with bad content by best technologies. And we have to end that story to bring some kind of communication between the generations on the way. Because the World Wide Web is not only a worldwide library, it's also a universe of sex and crime, pornography, games,
and trash.
hate, trash and shit and whatever, of course. It's a World Wide Web. It's the world. The world is that way.
I would say it's also a challenge to skip the difference. The different generation is processing the world. So nowadays, kids, they are processing the world in a simultaneous way, while we, in our 30s or 40s, or in our 50s or 60s, are processing the news one after another. So it's a huge change that we should do in our way of perceiving the world. And my concern is that it might not be able for the older generation to do. It's really hard for the youngster to imagine the world without the internet. My cousin kids, which are in their 12s and 13s, they were really shocked when I told them that the internet we have only for the last 2 decades. So they are growing up with the internet linked with their hands and with their brains. So they use it they live in a different virtual reality than we live. We live in a virtual reality only from time to time. They live in the virtual reality on the daily basis, on an hourly basis. So it's a completely different way of using the net, using all the virtual tools that they are using. So yes, that's a massive problem, to skip the difference between processing the world that we are having and our kids are having.
Bartosz?
So when I was listening to Eva, what she said, mostly at the end, I was thinking, so maybe the pandemic was a good thing because now all of us is communicating or living in a virtual world as we are just right now talking, just via some artificial tools. So that's why we the older ones can get to the world of the younger ones. The world is changing rapidly on many levels. This change of civilizations can be sometimes observed, especially in the societies that are technically lesser developed. For example, there are still communities in Africa, and when the tourists come there, the younger ones are those who can deal with the situation better. They know, for example, oh, there is maybe a source of income. We can let them pay for taking pictures of us, for example. And the moment where you have an elders council still in the village, but the elders don't understand the situation, you can see, okay, there is really a clash of civilizations within one civilization. It's the gap of generations which become a clash of civilizations. On the one hand. On the other hand, when the society is more developed, we get a bit closer to one another, because Eva was speaking about this different approach of how to gain information, and we can observe on the internet, for example, a big difference how the content is being presented. It's getting more and more picture oriented and less linear oriented as it used to be. Websites are organized that way. Libraries are organized that way. Also, the tools for professional researchers who are older, JSTOR, for example, a website, or Europeana, or digital libraries, libraries who provide digitalized books. They are presented in the way, maybe not exactly the way TikTok works, but it is going that direction, which means there is a kind of dialogue between younger people who are more used to it, to work that way, and the older people who maybe grew up in an analog world and are used to look for information in a bit different way. But there is a cooperation. So I wouldn't say it is not absolutely necessary that always we do everything between or within many generations, but in groups, it's good to communicate, because we are forced to it, and it's good like that we are forced to it. Even if I sometimes can feel uncomfortable with the way of presentation of contents which I'm not used to, and I need by that simply more time. My time is not being spent as effectively as it used to be, or it could be, if the content would be presented some other way. Maybe I can find some way of communication on different levels with younger people a bit quicker, or I can in general find a way to communicate, which is a good thing in itself. So maybe this is the way to find the communication between the generations on a technical level. And this makes it possible to communicate concerning, well, huge challenges of the times as they are now coming every few months, a new big challenge we haven't dreamt of just a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Natalia, would you like to say something?
Oh, okay, I'm here. Yes, because you know, we talk about communication, and I'm worried about what is the real, true communication in today, because what I mean that the children, the young generation, is not speaking with each other, real speak, but they are communicating, texting, or send the emails, text messages, emoticons, pictures, memes, etc. And I don't know what the real communication these days is, and how we can use this communication. If we, as the parents, adults, teachers, are prepared to have the main and good language with this young generation. Mm-hmm. One level of speaking of true I don't know,
communicating,
but I mean, yeah, I don't know what is good or
not. Well, the communication is at least 7 levels. It's not just the text, but we talk about the sound, we talk about the mimics, we talk about the atmosphere. Yeah. So it's a lot. So since we have the, I remember my first experiences with the cell phones when we started very late. I cannot tell you exactly, but I was about 12 or 14 when I had my first phone and I could write text messages, and I observed this on myself, that at some point there was a very nice person that I really liked. It was a male person, and we started actually to communicate more within the text messages that we actually did person to person. As a result, I found myself in a situation that we both found ourselves in a situation that we said more in the text messages and those emoticons and whatever that we actually were ready to say to each other. So there is a kind of difficulty, I think, when that this not person-to-person communication creates situations that do not reflect our true selves.
It's another level of communication, and I think what Natalia said about this problem of speaking and not communicating, or communicating and not talking. It's not a problem only of the new media. Niklas Luhmann was writing about this, not meaning the new tools and not the internet. He says communication communicates, but not the people who send the messages. The communication can communicate within itself. So maybe now we come to the moment where we have tools, technical tools, that make it easier, or maybe sometimes even possible, that the people who send the messages can really communicate over the new channel which wasn't there before, or maybe the way the channel is being developed by the younger people and the older people makes this new possibility which was not there as long as the elders communicated via long established channels and expected the youngest to communicate by the same channels, which is in many cases simply not possible.
I would say that nowadays we'll have a huge problem, well, maybe not a problem, maybe a challenge for all the languages, including the English language. It will be a rapid change of uses of the language. So basically, younger generation is using the language on a different level, on a less complicated level of using the language, without all that second meaning of the language. So the communication will change because the language itself will change. I finished philology as well. So I'm observing the differences of using the language that it used to be like 20 years ago and nowadays. Younger people are, in my opinion, are using the language, using more simple language without using all the second meaning of it. So it will be a global change in using, well, in communication because of the change in the language itself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're right. Just an anecdote. Just a few days back, I read about the word that has been chosen as the word of the year between young people, and in Poland, it's the word elowina. I don't know if you understand the word elowina.
Miła, can you say us what is this?
Elowina is something that means more or less hello.
Okay.
And in Germany, the Jugendwort des Jahres is the word of the youngsters, lost. Lost. Which maybe says a lot about the young people now.
Okay.
which is the most spread word, but also one that has a content of today.
We have got another challenge because the world, the way it used to be, Poland, Germany, other countries, because of the globalization and because of the virtual reality, new media world, it's not national anymore. Our kids, we ourselves, we read and watch and communicate with the whole world on different forums, on watching different things from different parts of the world. So we hear that there are differences even with about the words, and the word of the year is totally different, which means we probably live with different whatever problems or different feelings. But this next level, the globalization level, is also a huge challenge, because we not only have to think about what we use and how we use, but that everyone in the United Emirates can hear it or read it or can react to this. And this situation for the young people, how do we deal with this?
I think it's a bit similar to what we, as we were talking about the differences or the challenges of how to use new media. There are young people who can work with that very well, and there are ones that don't have to do much with it in general. And exactly, it's the same is when we talk about the discourse of young people. It depends where they live and how they live. There are for sure communities that are globally oriented and that communicate with many different cultures. And the other way around, there are communities which are concerned only about issues within the particular community, and that are not concerned about the outer world. It's very, very different. I think among young people, I would risk the thesis that it's not all the young people communicate across cultures and globally.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think about lingua franca, which is English? Isn't it more international due to the fact that we need to use English on the daily basis to stay up to date with all the technological news concerning new media?
Of course, English is getting more and more popular because it's needed for certain tools. If you want to learn something, you very often, if you simply need the know-how, you very often need the language, maybe a very basic form of it, some kind of pidgin English that lets you understand some basic information about how to use something, but it doesn't mean that you are able to communicate across cultures, across communities. And I don't have the feeling that young people, as such, as a big group, feels free to communicate, even if they are able to understand a few words in English, even if they are able to build some sentences in English. It still doesn't mean that they are open-minded enough to discuss across cultures, to ask themselves or somebody else things they grew up in, the system they have known, or maybe the questions they had concerning the system they know, or systems they don't. It's a long way there.
Mm-hmm. We seem to have a lot of open questions and huge challenges, actually, because first of all, there is education, and we need to educate ourselves, which is very, very complicated and difficult since we don't have that much time. Our heads are working differently, so not on the same speed as young people. Then we should know, and we should help the youngsters to use the new media, virtual reality, to get some new media competence, actually, but how to do it if we don't have them ourselves. So it's like we are in a very complicated situation, and then we have the global situation, which I think brings also a lot of dangers to us all, and especially for the young kids. So what can we do as people working in the field of culture and education? Can we help in these huge processes anyhow? Should we do anything precise? Can we help in this situation, or just should we do our own projects and just not to think about the global situation, which is overwhelming, as we see?
Yeah, we can. Of course.
Good. Good.
Yeah, the proper educated youngsters, we have to, from my point of view, we have to follow them. They are reaching out for the future, and we have to deal with our fears. Because, to give an example, we heard Mila's speech some minutes ago. Mila is thinking in English terms. When I'm talking here right now, I always have to translate my German thoughts into English. And we have to deal with such differences, and we have to deal with diversity, and the proper educated, global thinking, mobile young people here in Germany as well as in Poland, they are on the way in a different world. They are especially on the way to Europe. And so in our projects, we decided to follow them. For example, most of you know it, we decided to add our national competition for young filmmakers, because we got a problem to define what is young German filmmaking. The youngsters do not care for German language, German traditions to tell a story. They produce their own stuff in modern European and worldwide patterns, and they use English language for dialogues and subtitles, because they want to publish their movies also online in the World Wide Web. And there is English, the new universal code. And so that's the way it is. And if we want to be partners for the youngsters, we have to fit ourselves and our projects on that way to Europe and to a more global civilization of a wide range, a diversity of national cultures.
I would like to join what you said, because I think what we have been observing the past, I don't know, 50 years or probably much longer, is within the educational system, the tradition that we as the teachers want to teach the young people something we know, so that they know the same what we know. Yeah. And on the we can observe the same on the political level.